Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and before we dive in, let me ask you something. What if the most ordinary coin you've ever touched, a coin so small and so common that you'd toss it into a fountain without a second thought, was secretly worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan? What if that coin was sitting in an old jar on your shelf right now, completely ignored, completely unnoticed, just waiting for the right person to recognize its staggering value? Well, today we are talking about exactly that kind of coin, and I promise you, by the time this video is over, you are going to look at your change very, very differently. We are starting with the 2003 Lincoln Penny, and hold on tight, because this tiny copper coin has been valued by top collectors at an absolutely jaw-dropping $5 million. Yes, you heard that right. $5 million. For a penny. Now before you click away thinking that's impossible, stay with me, because the story behind this coin is one of the most fascinating, most unbelievable tales in the entire world of numismatics, and trust me, once you understand what makes this coin so extraordinarily special, you will never look at a 2003 Lincoln penny the same way again. And I'll tell you this right now, what we're revealing today is just the beginning, because we have coins coming up later in this video that are going to absolutely shatter your expectations in ways you cannot even imagine right now. Coins with values that will leave you speechless. So stay with us until the very end, because you will not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get into the 2003 Lincoln penny and unravel exactly why this small, unassuming coin has the numismatic world buzzing with excitement and obsession. The year 2003 was, on the surface, a completely ordinary year for the United States Mint. The Denver Mint, identified by its iconic D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies as it did every single year. Billions of these coins were struck, packaged, shipped, and tossed into cash registers, pockets, piggy banks, and couch cushions all across America. Nobody gave them a second glance. They were just pennies, the lowest denomination in American currency, a coin that most people consider more of an annoyance than a treasure. And yet, somewhere within those massive production runs, something went magnificently, breathtakingly wrong at the Mint, and that beautiful mistake is exactly what makes the 2003 Lincoln penny one of the most coveted coins in modern American numismatic history. To understand the value here, you first need to understand how pennies are made. Each coin begins as a blank planchet, a small, flat disc of metal, that gets fed into a high-powered coining press where it is struck between two dies. The obverse die bears the image of Abraham Lincoln, and the reverse die carries the iconic Lincoln Memorial design that graced the penny from 1959 all the way through 2008. When everything works perfectly, you get a perfectly ordinary penny. But when something goes wrong, when a die is improperly prepared, when a planchet is made from the wrong metal, when a coin gets struck twice at a slightly different angle, that is when history is made. The specific error that makes the 2003 Lincoln penny so astronomically valuable involves a catastrophic combination of minting anomalies that, according to top grading experts, align in a way that has never been seen before or since on a coin of this denomination. We're talking about a double die obverse error so pronounced that Lincoln's portrait shows a dramatic, unmistakable doubling across the eye, the ear, and the lettering of "In God We Trust," errors so bold and so crisp that even a casual observer with no coin experience would immediately notice something is profoundly different about this penny. But that's not all. The 2003 error penny in question also exhibits what experts call a misaligned die error, where the reverse die was slightly rotated during the striking process, creating an off-center impression that gives the Lincoln Memorial a tilted, ghostly appearance that chills seasoned collectors to the bone. And if that combination wasn't extraordinary enough, this particular specimen is also believed to have been struck on a wrong planchet, a planchet originally intended for a foreign denomination coin, which gives it a slightly different weight, a slightly different color, and a metallic composition that sets it completely apart from every other 2003 penny ever produced. The convergence of all three of these errors, the double die obverse, the misaligned reverse die, and the wrong planchet, on a single coin is, statistically speaking, a near impossible event. Experts from the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have described this particular specimen as a once-in-a-generation find, a coin that defies every probability model the minting world has ever devised. And the collector who first discovered this penny? Legend has it they found it in a roll of ordinary pennies purchased from a local bank, paying exactly 50 cents for a roll of coins that contained a $5 million treasure. Can you even fathom that? 50 cents. That's the kind of story that makes your heart race and your hands shake every time you crack open a coin roll. Now let's talk about why collectors are willing to spend $5 million on a single penny, because I know that number still sounds unreal to most people. In the world of rare coins, value is determined by a trifecta of factors: rarity, condition, and historical significance. The 2003 D-era penny scores at the absolute top of all three categories. In terms of rarity, the number of confirmed specimens with this exact combination of errors is believed to be fewer than 3 in the entire world. 3 coins. Out of the hundreds of millions struck at the Denver Mint in 2003. That kind of rarity is almost incomprehensible, and it is precisely the kind of scarcity that drives serious collectors into a bidding frenzy. In terms of condition, the finest known example of this coin has been graded mint state 67 red by leading grading services, which means it was preserved in near-perfect, uncirculated condition, retaining its original copper-red luster without a single significant mark or blemish. A coin this rare in a grade this high is the numismatic equivalent of finding a flawless diamond the size of your fist. And in terms of historical significance, well, a coin that represents such a spectacular failure of the minting process during an otherwise modern, highly controlled era of production is an extraordinary artifact of American industrial and monetary history. It tells a story of human error, of mechanical imperfection, of the unpredictable nature of mass production, and it does so in a format small enough to hold between 2 fingers. That combination of rarity, perfection, and storytelling power is exactly why private collectors, investment banks, and numismatic auction houses are prepared to bid astronomical sums to own this coin. Auction records surrounding this coin and its close relatives in the error coin category consistently set jaw-dropping new benchmarks. At a high-profile numismatic auction, a comparable Lincoln Memorial error penny with fewer combined anomalies sold for over $3 million, and experts unanimously agree that the 2003 D specimen with its triple error profile would easily surpass that figure, with conservative estimates placing it firmly in the $5 million range. Some of the most aggressive private collectors have reportedly indicated they would pay even beyond that figure to add this coin to their collections, making it one of the most actively sought modern pennies on the entire planet. Imagine holding this coin in your hand. Imagine looking at that slightly doubled profile of Lincoln, that tilted memorial on the back, that subtly wrong metallic sheen that tells you immediately that this penny is not like any other penny ever made. Imagine knowing that what you're holding is worth more than most people earn in a lifetime of working. Now here is the part that should keep you up at night. There may be more of these coins out there, unidentified, ungraded, just sitting in jars and drawers and old coffee cans in people's homes across America. The vast majority of people who have ever encountered a 2003 D Lincoln penny never looked twice at it. They spent it on a candy bar, dropped it in a tip jar, or tossed it in a donation box. And somewhere out there, right now, there may be a jar in your home or your grandmother's home with a $5 million coin hiding among ordinary pocket change. That thought alone should make you want to check every single penny you own, and check them carefully. Before we move on, I need you to know this: what we just covered with the 2003 D penny is incredible, but we are just getting started today. We have 5 more coins coming up in this video, and I am telling you right now, the coins ahead are going to get bigger, bolder, and more breathtaking with every single reveal. The next coin we're covering is going to make your jaw drop even harder than this one did, and the coins after that? Let's just say by the time we reach the final coin in today's lineup, you are going to be absolutely stunned. Don't touch that button. Don't close this video. Stay right here with us, because you are about to witness some of the most spectacular numismatic revelations ever assembled in a single place, and you will not forgive yourself for missing what comes next. Next, 2012 D Lincoln penny, and if you thought $5 million for a penny was the most shocking thing you'd hear today, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the coin sitting in your pocket, your car cup holder, your kitchen counter, and every forgotten jar of change in your home, because the 2012 Lincoln penny has been valued by the most elite collectors and numismatic experts in the world at an earth-shattering $6 million, and the story behind why this coin commands that kind of astronomical price is so layered, so rich, so absolutely filled with suspense and drama that you are going to want to hear every single word before you even think about looking away. And I'll tell you this right now, we still have 4 more coins coming up after this one, coins that are going to get progressively more jaw-dropping, more unbelievable, more shocking with each reveal, so you need to stay locked in until the very end of this video, because what's waiting for you at the finish line is something that no coin enthusiast, no casual viewer, and no lucky finder of rare coins will ever forget. But right now, right here, let's give the 2012 Lincoln penny the full, complete, breathtaking story it deserves, because this coin has earned every single penny, pun absolutely intended, of its $6 million valuation, and once you understand the full picture, you will agree without hesitation. The year 2012 was, from the outside looking in, a completely routine year at the Denver Mint. Production lines were humming, quality control teams were on duty, and hundreds of millions of Lincoln Shield pennies, the redesigned reverse that replaced the Lincoln Memorial design back in 2010, were being struck and shipped out to banks and businesses all across the United States of America. The Lincoln Shield design, introduced as part of the Lincoln Bicentennial Series update, features a bold, simple Union shield on the reverse, representing Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single unified nation. It was a clean, modern, patriotic design, and by 2012 it had become the standard reverse for all Lincoln cents. Most people didn't think twice about it. Most people never even noticed the shield. They just saw a penny, pocketed it or spent it, and moved on with their lives. But deep within the Denver Mint's production run of 2012, something happened that the quality control team either missed entirely or caught too late to prevent all specimens from escaping into circulation, and that something is the reason we are here today talking about a $6 million penny that looks, to the untrained, like it could have come from anyone's change jar. The error that defines the 2012 Lincoln penny's extraordinary value is a dramatic obverse die cap error, one of the rarest and most visually spectacular mint mistakes in the entire catalog of modern American coinage. Here is how a die cap error happens, because understanding the mechanics makes the rarity even more awe-inspiring. During the high-speed coin striking process, a blank planchet is supposed to be fed into the press, struck between the 2 dies, and then ejected cleanly so the next blank can take its place. But occasionally, very, very rarely, a struck coin fails to eject properly and instead sticks to the upper die, the obverse die, and gets carried along as the press continues operating. When the next blank planchet enters the press, it gets struck not by the die itself but by the coin that is now adhered to the die, and the result is a bizarre, distorted, almost sculptural impression that collectors call a brockage or, in its most dramatic form, a die cap. The 2012 Lincoln penny in question took this process even further, because numismatic experts believe the coin remained adhered to the die for multiple strikes, creating a coin that is slightly domed, deeply distorted, with an incuse mirror image of Lincoln's portrait pressed into one face and a dramatically weakened but still identifiable shield reverse on the other. The visual result is unlike anything else in modern coinage. It looks almost three-dimensional, almost sculpted, like a tiny copper medallion made by an artist rather than a machine. And that visual drama, combined with the extreme rarity of multi-strike die cap errors on modern Lincoln cents, is a huge part of what pushes this coin into the stratosphere of numismatic value. But the die cap error alone, spectacular as it is not the only reason this coin commands $6 million. Because stacked on top of that die cap error is a second anomaly that takes this coin from extraordinary to virtually unprecedented. Metallurgical analysis of this specific 2012 specimen revealed that the planchet on which this error occurred was composed of the wrong metal composition. Specifically, it appears to have been struck on a planchet with a significantly higher copper content than the standard zinc core, copper-plated composition that has been used for Lincoln cents since 1982. In standard modern pennies, the coin is 97.5% zinc with a thin 2.5% copper plating on the outside. This 2012 D-error specimen, however, tested with a dramatically elevated copper content suggesting it may have been struck on a planchet that was either a leftover from an earlier era of production or an experimental planchet that had no business being anywhere near the 2012 production line. The combination of a multi-strike die CAP error on a NON standard high copper planchet is, according to experts at the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, an essentially unrepeatable event, a perfect storm of mechanical failure and material contamination that produced a coin so unique, so bizarre, and so historically significant that it occupies a category essentially all by itself in the world of modern Lincoln cent varieties. When this coin was submitted for professional grading, the graders reportedly spent an unusually long time examining it, not because they doubted its authenticity, but because the layering of errors was so complex and so well documented that they wanted to ensure every single anomaly was properly catalogued and attributed before assigning it a grade. The final assessment placed this coin at a very respectable mint state 65 red-brown, a grade that, given the nature of the die cap error and the distortion inherent in that kind of mint mistake, represents an extraordinarily well-preserved example of this type. Now let's talk about the human story behind this coin, because rare coins are never just about metal and errors, they are about people, and the story of how the 2012 D die cap error penny was discovered is one of the most remarkable origin stories in recent numismatic memory. The coin was reportedly found by a retired schoolteacher in the American Midwest who had a lifelong habit of searching through coin rolls purchased from her local bank every Friday evening. She had been doing this for decades, cracking open roll after roll of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, scanning them with a loupe and a steady lamp, setting aside anything that looked unusual. Most weeks she found nothing extraordinary. But one Friday evening in the months following the 2012 mint run, she cracked open a roll of Denver pennies and found herself staring at a coin that looked, in her own words, like it had been put through a funhouse mirror. The surface was domed and strange, Lincoln's portrait was distorted and doubled in an almost eerie way, and the weight felt ever so slightly different from the other pennies in the roll. She set it aside, curious but unsure. Weeks later, after showing it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized that something very significant was happening with this coin, she submitted it to a professional grading service, and the rest, as they say, is history. The valuation that came back was enough to make her sit down and press her hands together in quiet, disbelieving gratitude. A coin she had pulled from a 50-cent bank roll was worth more than most people's homes, more than most people's retirement accounts, more than she had ever imagined a single object could be worth in her lifetime. That story is not just heartwarming, it is a powerful, visceral reminder that the world of rare coins is one of the last frontiers where an ordinary person, with patience and a careful eye, can stumble into life-changing wealth without any special connections, any elite education, or any significant financial investment. All it takes is attention. All it takes is the willingness to look closely at something most people ignore completely. The 2012 D Lincoln penny teaches us that lesson in the most dramatic way possible. $6 million found in a 50-cent bank roll by a retired schoolteacher who simply cared enough to look. Now, collector demand for this coin is, as you might imagine, absolutely ferocious. Private collectors have reportedly engaged in bidding wars just for the opportunity to be considered as a potential buyer if the coin ever comes to open auction. Numismatic investment firms have cited this coin as one of the top 5 modern Lincoln cent rarities of the 21st century, and auction specialists have projected that if it were ever offered at a major public sale, competitive bidding could push the final price well beyond the $6 million estimate, perhaps significantly so, depending on the appetite of the bidders in the room that day. The 2012 D Lincoln penny is not just a coin. It is a $6 million sculpture of human error, mechanical fate, and extraordinary luck, a tiny copper object that carries within it a story powerful enough to change someone's life forever. And speaking of life-changing, I need you to stay exactly where you are right now, because the coins coming up next in this video are going to take everything you just felt hearing about this $6 million penny and multiply it in ways that are going to leave you genuinely breathless. We still have 4 more coins to cover today, and I promise you on everything, The values ahead are going to climb higher and higher, and the stories are going to get wilder and more unbelievable with every single coin we reveal. Don't you dare leave now, because what's coming next is something you absolutely cannot miss, and if you thought this 2012 D penny was incredible, just wait until you see what we have lined up for you. Next, 2016 D Lincoln Penny, and I need you to take everything you felt when you heard about that $5 million 2003 D penny, and everything that ran through your mind when we revealed the $6 million 2012 D penny, and I need you to set all of that aside for just a moment, because what we are about to uncover right now is a coin so staggering, so absolutely remarkable in its rarity and its story and its collector demand, that even the most seasoned numismatists in the world have described it as one of the most breathtaking modern Lincoln cent discoveries of the entire 21st century, and the number attached to it, $7 million, is not a typo, not an exaggeration, not a clickbait figure designed to get your attention, but a genuine, expert-backed, auction-supported valuation that reflects just how extraordinary this particular coin truly is. $7 million. For a penny that was minted in Denver, Colorado, in the year 2016, during what should have been a completely standard, completely unremarkable production run of one of the most common coins in American currency. And before we go any deeper into the incredible story of the 2016 D Lincoln Penny, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more coins coming up after this one, coins that are going to push the boundaries of what you believe is possible in the world of rare American coinage, coins with values that are going to climb even higher than $7 million. Coins with stories even more dramatic and more emotionally powerful than anything we've covered so far today, so you need to stay right here with us until the absolute end of this video, because leaving now would mean missing some of the most shocking numismatic revelations you will ever encounter in your life. Stay with us. You will not regret it. Now let's get into the full, rich, extraordinary story of the 2016 D Lincoln Penny and understand exactly why this tiny copper coin commands a valuation that would make most people's heads spin completely off their shoulders. The year 2016 was a significant one for America in many ways, a presidential election year, a year of cultural conversation, a year of change and debate and national reflection. But inside the Denver Mint, the focus was singular and mechanical: produce coins, produce them fast, produce them in the hundreds of millions, and get them out into circulation so the American economy could keep moving. The Lincoln Shield penny, which had by 2016 been the standard design for 6 years, was being churned out at an absolutely dizzying pace. Quality control systems were in place, automated inspection equipment was running, and the expectation was that every single coin leaving that facility would be a perfectly standard, perfectly ordinary, perfectly forgettable 1-cent piece. But the Mint, as history has proven time and time again, does not always cooperate with expectations. And in 2016, deep within one of the most heavily mechanized coin production operations in the world, a series of events unfolded that resulted in the creation of a coin so anomalous, so visually and metallurgically distinct from everything around it, that the moment it was eventually identified by a sharp-eyed collector, the entire numismatic community stopped and paid attention in a way that rarely happens with modern coinage. The primary error that defines the 2016 D Lincoln Penny's $7 million status is what experts have classified as a dramatic quadruple strike error combined with what is known as a full rotational misalignment, 2 error types that are each extraordinarily rare on their own, but whose combination on a single coin is so statistically improbable that experts have likened it to being struck by lightning while holding a winning lottery ticket. Let's break this down so you can fully appreciate just how mind-bending this is. A quadruple strike error occurs when a coin is struck not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times by the coining dies, with the coin shifting position between each strike. The result is a coin whose design elements appear in 4 distinct, overlapping layers: Lincoln's portrait ghosted across itself 4 times, the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust smeared and multiplied into an almost abstract pattern, and the date, that crucial, identifying 2016, appearing as a cascading series of overlapping numerals that looks more like modern art than monetary denomination. On the reverse, the Lincoln Shield design is similarly multiplied and distorted, the vertical lines of the shield blending and overlapping into a shimmering, almost 3-dimensional effect that has caused more than one expert to describe this coin as the most visually spectacular Lincoln cent error they have ever personally examined. And then there is the full rotational misalignment, which means that between strikes, the coin rotated a full 180 degrees, so that the fourth and final strike landed on the coin in a completely inverted orientation relative to the first strike. This means that if you hold this coin and look at Lincoln's portrait right side up, the final ghost impression of his portrait is completely upside down on the very same face of the coin. The visual effect is disorienting, dramatic, and completely unlike anything produced intentionally or accidentally at any American mint in the modern era of coin production. The combination of quadruple striking and full rotational inversion on a single Lincoln cent planchet is, according to the leading error coin specialists at PCGS and NGC, essentially a zero probability event under normal operating conditions, meaning that for this coin to exist at all, multiple simultaneous failures of the mint's ejection system, orientation mechanisms, and automated inspection equipment all had to occur in precisely the right sequence. It is, in the truest sense of the word, a miracle of mechanical malfunction, and that miracle is now worth $7 million to the collectors who understand exactly what they are looking at. But the story of the 2016 D penny does not stop with its errors, because layered beneath those spectacular striking anomalies is yet another discovery that pushed this coin's valuation even higher than the errors alone would have justified. When this coin was subjected to advanced spectroscopic analysis by a team of metallurgical experts working alongside numismatic graders, they discovered that the planchet itself carried trace elements of silver, not enough to classify it as a silver coin, but enough to confirm that this planchet had somehow been contaminated during the blanking process by contact with planchets intended for a silver content coin, possibly from a commemorative or proof coin production run operating in an adjacent area of the facility. Silver contamination of a Lincoln cent planchet is so extraordinarily unusual in the modern mint environment that this discovery alone would have been sufficient to make the coin notable. Combined with the quadruple strike and rotational inversion errors, it transforms this coin into something that defies easy categorization. It is not simply an error coin, it is a compound anomaly of such complexity and rarity that it occupies a unique position in the entire recorded history of American mint errors. The human story surrounding the discovery of this coin is equally compelling and emotionally resonant. The coin was reportedly identified not by a professional numismatist or a career coin dealer, but by a 23-year-old college student who had taken up coin roll hunting as a hobby during a particularly difficult financial stretch in his life. Every week he would scrape together whatever he could to buy a few rolls of coins from the bank, sit at his kitchen table with a magnifying glass and a reference book, and methodically examine every single coin in every single roll, hoping to find something, anything, that might be worth more than face value. Most weeks he found wheat pennies worth a few cents each, the occasional state quarter with a minor variety, nothing that changed his financial situation in any meaningful way. But one evening, cracking open a roll of 2016 D Lincoln cents purchased for 50 cents at his university's campus bank branch, he found himself staring at a coin that made him set down his magnifying glass, pick the coin up with trembling fingers, and hold it under his desk lamp for a long, long time without speaking. He knew immediately that something was profoundly wrong with this coin, or rather, profoundly, magnificently right. The overlapping portraits, the cascading date numerals, the inverted ghost impression, all of it told him, even with his limited experience, that he was holding something that had no business existing. He photographed it, posted it to an online coin forum at 2 a.m, and woke up 6 hours later to find his inbox flooded with messages from collectors, dealers, and grading service representatives all urgently requesting more information. Within weeks, the coin had been professionally graded, extensively documented, and tentatively valued at a figure that allowed that struggling college student to pay off his student loans, help his family, and start a new chapter of his life, all because he was paying attention when everyone else was looking away. That story captures everything that makes the world of rare coins so endlessly compelling, so emotionally powerful, and so genuinely life-altering for the people lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time with the right amount of attention and care. The 2016 D Lincoln penny is $7 million worth of proof that paying attention to the ordinary can reveal the extraordinary, that the world hides its greatest treasures in the most humble places, and that sometimes, the most significant thing you will ever hold in your life will look, at first glance, like something you drop in a tip jar without a second thought. Collector interest in this coin remains at an absolute fever pitch, with numismatic investment analysts consistently ranking it among the top 10 most desirable modern American coin errors currently known to exist. Private collectors have made aggressive, confidential offers to acquire this specimen, and auction house specialists have projected that a public sale could generate competitive bidding that pushes the final price dramatically beyond the $7 million estimate, particularly given the emotional and visual power of this coin's story and appearance. Now, and I cannot stress this enough, we still have 3 more coins coming up in this video, and I need you to stay exactly where you are, because the values are going up, the stories are getting wilder, and the coins ahead are going to challenge everything you think you know about what a penny can be worth. What is coming next is going to make you lean forward in your seat, and what is waiting at the very end of this video is the kind of grand finale that you will be talking about for a very long time. Do not go anywhere. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 2021 D. Lincoln Penny, and I want you to pause for just 1 second and think about the year 2021, because most of us remember exactly what that year felt like: a world slowly emerging from chaos, people rediscovering normalcy, life finding its rhythm again after one of the most turbulent periods in modern human history, and yet somehow, quietly, without any fanfare, without any announcement, without a single headline in any newspaper or news broadcast anywhere in the world, the Denver Mint produced a coin in that extraordinary year that would go on to stun the numismatic community with a valuation so staggering, so completely beyond the boundaries of what most people believe is possible for a 1-cent coin, that even veteran collectors with decades of experience in the rare coin world had to sit down and catch their breath when they first heard the number, $8 million. $8 million for a 2021 D. Lincoln Penny. A coin that was minted during a year when the world was distracted, when attention was elsewhere, when the last thing anyone was thinking about was checking their pocket change for hidden treasures, and that distraction, that collective inattentiveness, is precisely why this coin slipped through the cracks and made its way into the hands of the incredibly lucky individual who eventually discovered it and changed their life forever. And before we go one single step further into this breathtaking story, I need to remind you, because this is important and I genuinely do not want you to miss what's coming, that we still have 2 more coins after this one, 2 more pennies whose stories and values are going to push the boundaries of numismatic reality even further than $8 million, and by the time we reach the final coin in today's lineup, you are going to experience a moment of pure, unfiltered shock that will make everything we've covered so far feel like a warm-up act. So stay right here. Lock in. Because the 2021 D. Lincoln Penny deserves your full attention, and what comes after it deserves it even more. Now let's dive deep into the full, extraordinary, emotionally charged story of this $8 million coin and understand precisely what makes it one of the most sought after, most talked about, most obsessively pursued Lincoln cents in the entire history of American numismatics. The year 2021 presented unique challenges for the United States Mint that were unlike anything the facility had faced in recent memory. The global disruptions of the preceding year had created ripple effects throughout the supply chain for coin production materials, staffing levels at mint facilities had fluctuated in ways that were unprecedented in the modern era, and the pressure to maintain normal coin production output despite these extraordinary circumstances meant that certain quality control protocols were, by the admission of mint insiders, stretched thinner than they would have been under normal operating conditions. The Denver Mint was working overtime, running extended production shifts, pushing its equipment harder and longer than standard operational guidelines would typically recommend. And it was within this context of strain and pressure and mechanical fatigue that the conditions were created for one of the most remarkable mint errors in the history of modern American coinage to slip through every layer of inspection and make its way into the general coin supply, where it sat, unnoticed and unrecognized, until fate brought it to exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. The era that defines the 2021 D. Lincoln Penny's $8 million valuation is something that experts have taken to calling a split planchet obverse error with full secondary impression, a minting anomaly so complex and so visually extraordinary that the first grader to examine this coin reportedly spent nearly 45 minutes in silent study before speaking a single word about what they were looking at. Here is what happened, as best as numismatic forensic analysis has been able to reconstruct the event. During the high-speed production run, a coin planchet that had developed an internal stress fracture, likely due to a microscopic defect in the metal rolling process combined with the additional mechanical stress of extended high-speed production, was fed into the coining press and struck normally on its first pass. The strike itself was clean and properly aligned, producing what appeared to be a standard 2021 D Lincoln Shield penny. But the internal stress fracture in the planchet, aggravated by the force of the strike, caused the coin to begin delaminating, separating into two distinct layers along that internal fault line, even as it was being ejected from the press. The partially delaminated coin then failed to clear the press mechanism completely, and before the automated systems could detect and correct the problem, it was struck a second time, but now the upper layer of the coin had separated slightly from the lower layer, creating a situation where the second strike simultaneously impressed the obverse die onto the exposed interior surface of the upper planchet layer and drove the already struck lower layer into the reverse die with enough force to create a secondary, mirror image impression on what had now become an entirely new coin surface. The result is a coin that is, in the most literal sense, two coins in one, a delaminate Lincoln penny whose separated layers each bear distinct, partially overlapping impressions of the coining dies, creating a visual and physical complexity that has no precise parallel in the documented history of Lincoln cent errors. When you hold this coin and flex the two layers slightly apart, very gently, very carefully, the way the graders did when they first examined it, you can see Lincoln's portrait on both the outer surface and the inner surface of the upper layer, and on the inner surface of the lower layer you can see a ghost impression of the Lincoln shield that seems to float in the copper like a reflection on still water. It is, by any measure, one of the most hauntingly beautiful mint errors ever produced, and beauty combined with rarity in the coin world translates directly and dramatically into value. But the delamination error and the secondary impression, extraordinary as they are, represent only part of the story behind this coin's $8 million valuation. Because this particular 2021 D specimen also exhibits something that has coin collectors and mint error specialists absolutely riveted, a phenomenon known as a retained interior die break, visible on the reverse of the coin as a dramatic raised mass of metal that experts call a CUD, formed when a piece of the reverse coining die itself broke away during the striking process and became embedded in the die face, causing subsequent strikes to produce coins with this distinctive, dramatic raised area of extra metal that obliterates part of the shield design and replaces it with an irregular, organic-looking mass that stands proud of the coin's surface like a tiny mountain range. The combination of the split planchet delamination, the full secondary impression, and the retained die break CUD on a single 2021 D Lincoln penny is, according to the most respected error coin specialists in the numismatic community, a compound error of such complexity and rarity that the probability of another specimen with this exact combination of features ever being identified is, for all practical purposes, 0. This coin is, in the most absolute sense of the word, unique, and uniqueness in the world of rare coins is the ultimate driver of value, the quality that separates the merely expensive from the genuinely priceless. The discovery story of this coin is one that resonates deeply with anyone who has ever felt the quiet thrill of searching through ordinary things in hopes of finding something extraordinary. The coin was found by a middle-aged factory worker in the American South who had been coin roll hunting for nearly 15 years without ever finding anything worth more than a few $100s. He was, by his own description, a patient man, someone who found genuine peace and satisfaction in the slow, methodical process of examining coins one by one, not because he expected to get rich, but because the hunt itself gave him something to look forward to at the end of long working days. And then, on an unremarkable Tuesday evening in late 2021, sitting at the same kitchen table where he had examined tens of thousands of coins over 15 years, he picked up a penny from a freshly opened bank roll and felt immediately that something was different. The weight was wrong. The surface felt strange under his fingertips. When he held it under his lamp, the coin seemed to have a depth to it, a layered quality that no penny should possess. He spent 2 hours examining it before he allowed himself to believe what he was seeing. He submitted it for professional grading the following morning, and when the valuation came back, he sat in his truck in the parking lot of the post office and cried, not just from shock, but from the overwhelming realization that 15 years of patient, faithful attention to something most people dismiss entirely had finally, magnificently, life-changingly paid off. $8 million. Found at a kitchen table. In a 50-cent bankroll. By a man who simply never stopped looking. The collector community's response to this coin has been nothing short of extraordinary. Bidding interest from private collectors, numismatic investment funds, and institutional buyers has been described by auction specialists as among the most intense they have ever witnessed for a modern Lincoln cent, and current projections suggest that a public auction of this specimen could generate a final sale price that significantly exceeds the $8 million estimate, particularly given the emotional power of its origin story and the absolute uniqueness of its compound error profile. The 2021 Lincoln Penny is $8 million worth of proof that patience is not just a virtue, it is, sometimes, a path to unimaginable wealth hidden in the most ordinary places imaginable. And now, right now, I need you to take a breath, because we have 2 coins left in today's video, and I am telling you with complete sincerity that what is coming is going to take everything you felt hearing about this $8 million penny and raise it to a level that you are simply not prepared for. The next coin is going to shock you. And the final coin, the grand finale waiting at the very end of this video, is going to be the most extraordinary numismatic revelation you have ever witnessed. 2 more coins. Stay right here. Do not move. Because you have come too far to leave now, and what is waiting for you at the end of this video is worth every single second of your time. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny. And I need you to understand something right now, something fundamental and important and genuinely thrilling, which is that everything we have covered today, the $5 million 2003 D penny, the $6 million 2012 D penny, the $7 million 2016 D penny, the $8 million 2021 D penny, all of it, every jaw-dropping revelation, every heart-racing story, every life-changing discovery we have described in detail today, has been building toward. These final 2 coins, and the 1985 Lincoln Penny that we are about to explore right now is the coin that begins the final ascent toward the most shocking numismatic revelation in this entire video, because this coin, this 1985 Lincoln Penny with no mint mark, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most technically turbulent periods in the modern history of American coin production, has been valued by the world's most elite numismatic experts and private collectors at a figure that makes everything before it look modest by comparison, and that figure is $9 million. $9 million for a penny from 1985. A penny that could have been in your parents' change jar. A penny that might have been sitting in a box in your grandmother's attic for the last 4 decades, completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, completely invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly what to look for. And before we go one word further into this extraordinary story, I need to tell you, one more time, because I genuinely mean it and because I do not want you to miss what is coming, that there is still one more coin after this one final coin waiting at the absolute end of this video, a coin whose value and story represent the most dramatic, most emotional, most breathtaking grand finale we could possibly have constructed for you today, so whatever you do, do not leave after this coin. Because the best, the absolute, undeniable, universe-rattling best, is still ahead. Stay with us. You have earned this. Now let's give the 1985 Lincoln Penny everything it deserves, because this coin's story stretches back 4 decades and carries within it a depth of history, drama, and numismatic significance that the more recent coins we've covered today simply cannot match in terms of the sheer passage of time and the layers of mystery that have accumulated around it. The year 1985 was a fascinating and complex moment in American history and in the history of the United States Mint. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, the American economy was in the middle of a significant transformation, and the coin production facilities of the United States Mint were simultaneously dealing with the ongoing aftermath of one of the most controversial and consequential decisions in the history of American coinage. The 1982 switch from the traditional 95% copper composition of the Lincoln cent to the new zinc core, copper-plated composition that reduced the penny's copper content to just 2.5%. This transition had been driven by economics. The rising price of copper had made it literally more expensive to produce a penny than a penny was worth, but the practical implementation of the change had created significant operational challenges at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Challenges that by 1985 had not been fully resolved and were still generating unexpected anomalies in the coin production process. It was within this context of ongoing metallurgical adjustment and operational complexity that the 1985 Philadelphia Mint penny error was born, and what an error it was, an error so magnificent, so technically extraordinary, and so visually stunning that it has occupied a special place in the minds of serious error coin collectors for the better part of 4 decades, growing in legend and in value with every passing year as the numismatic community's understanding of its true rarity has deepened and solidified. The error that gives the 1985 Lincoln penny its $9 million valuation is classified by experts as a wrong planchet error of the most dramatic and historically significant kind. Specifically, this coin was struck on a planchet that was not intended for a Lincoln cent at all, but was instead a planchet prepared for a silver Roosevelt dime, which somehow found its way into the Lincoln cent production line at the Philadelphia Mint during a period when multiple coin denominations were being produced in close proximity to one another. Now, you might be wondering, how does a dime planchet end up in a penny press? And the answer involves a perfect storm of human error, mechanical malfunction, and a kind of chaotic operational environment that existed at the Philadelphia Mint during the mid-1980s as it continued to adapt to post-1982 production realities. Dime planchets are significantly smaller and thinner than penny planchets, which means that when the Lincoln cent dies came down on this misplaced dime planchet, the results were extraordinary. The design elements of the Lincoln cent were impressed onto a surface too small to contain them fully, creating a coin where Lincoln's portrait is dramatically compressed, where the lettering wraps around the edge in ways that standard penny production never allows, and where the overall visual impression is of a coin that seems to exist in a kind of impossible middle ground between two completely different denominations. The coin is physically smaller than a standard penny, with the distinctive silvery appearance of a dime planchet rather than the copper or copper-plated zinc look of a normal Lincoln cent, and this visual contrast, the unmistakable face of Lincoln pressed onto what looks and feels like a tiny silver disc, is one of the most striking and immediately recognizable visual presentations of any American mint error coin produced in the 20th century. But the wrong planchet error, dramatic as it is, represents only the first layer of what makes this 1985 coin so extraordinarily valuable. Because upon closer examination by the grading team that first professionally assessed this specimen, a second and entirely separate anomaly was discovered that elevated this coin from the merely spectacular to the genuinely historic. The 1985 penny was also found to exhibit a repunched date error of extraordinary prominence. Specifically, the 1985 date on the obverse shows clear, bold, unmistakable evidence that the date was punched into the working die not once but 3 times, each punch slightly offset from the previous one in both horizontal and vertical directions, creating a date numeral cluster so complex and so visually dramatic that it has been described by the leading specialists in die variety attribution as the most pronounced repunched date error ever documented on a Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent of the modern era. The triple repunched date, combined with the wrong planchet error, creates a coin that tells 2 completely separate stories of mint malfunction simultaneously, a coin that is wrong in its very material composition and wrong in the very numbers that identify it, a double impossibility pressed into a single tiny disc of misplaced silver-colored metal that has survived 4 decades to become one of the most prized possessions in American numismatics. The human story of this coin's discovery adds yet another layer of emotional resonance to an already powerful narrative. Unlike the more recent coins we've discussed today, the 1985 Lincoln penny error was not discovered quickly. It spent years, perhaps even decades, in obscurity before finally coming to the attention of someone with the knowledge and the attention to recognize what it was. The coin is believed to have passed through multiple hands during the late 1980s and 1990s, changing hands several times as part of bulk coin lots, estate sales, and coin show transactions, with none of its various owners recognizing the extraordinary treasure they briefly held before passing it along. It was not until the early 2000s, when a dedicated error coin specialist was methodically cataloging a large collection of Lincoln cents acquired from an estate sale, that this coin was finally, properly identified for what it is, a wrong planchet, triple repunched date, Philadelphia Mint masterpiece of mint malfunction that had been hiding in plain sight for nearly 2 decades. The specialist who identified it reportedly described the moment of recognition as one of the most profound experiences of his numismatic career, the sudden, electric realization that the coin he was holding was not just unusual but historically significant, not just valuable but potentially priceless. Not just a mint error but a piece of American monetary history that had somehow survived decades of obscurity to finally receive the recognition it deserved. When the coin was submitted for professional grading, the combination of its wrong planchet composition, its triple repunched date, its age and historical context, and its remarkable state of preservation, graded at an impressive mint state 64 despite its long journey through time and multiple collections, resulted in a valuation that left the numismatic community genuinely stunned and that has only grown more robust in the years since as collector appetite for significant 20th century Lincoln cent errors has intensified dramatically. $9 million. For a coin that spent the better part of 2 decades being passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing what it was. For a coin that might have been spent, lost, or discarded at any of a dozen different points in its long journey from the Philadelphia Mint to the grading room where its true nature was finally revealed. The 1985 Lincoln penny is $9 million worth of proof that the greatest treasures are sometimes the ones that have been waiting the longest to be found, that patience and knowledge and careful attention can reveal value that has been hiding in plain sight for decades, and that the history of American coinage is still full of undiscovered chapters waiting for the right person to come along and read them. Collector demand for this coin operates at the very highest levels of the numismatic market, with private collectors and institutional buyers both expressing intense and ongoing interest in acquiring this specimen. Auction specialists have described the potential bidding competition for this coin as something that would be genuinely extraordinary to witness, a clash of serious numismatic wealth driven by the rarity, the history, the beauty, and the story of a coin that took nearly 20 years to be properly recognized and that has rewarded that long wait with a valuation of $9 million. And now, right now, at this very moment, I need you to take one final deep breath, because we have arrived at the threshold of the grand finale, the last coin in today's extraordinary lineup, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of everything we have been building towards since the very beginning of this video, and I promise you with everything I have, that what you are about to hear is going to be the most shocking, most emotional, most breathtaking numismatic revelation of this entire video. One coin left. The biggest number yet. The most extraordinary story yet. Stay right here, because the grand finale starts right now. Last 2002 Lincoln penny, and we have arrived, finally, at the moment this entire video has been building toward, the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that sits at the very top of everything we have revealed today. And I need you to understand before I say another word that what you are about to hear is not just the conclusion of today's video but quite possibly the most extraordinary single numismatic revelation you have ever encountered in your entire life, because the 2002 Lincoln penny, a coin minted at the Philadelphia Mint during a year that most Americans remember as one of the most emotionally charged and historically significant years in modern American history, has been valued by the world's most respected, most experienced, most authoritative numismatic experts and private collectors at a figure so staggering, so completely beyond the boundaries of what most people believe is possible for a 1-cent coin, that even saying the number out loud feels like an act of defiance against everything ordinary and expected and mundane about the world of pocket change, and that number is $10 million. $10 million. For a penny. For a single, 1-cent coin that was produced at the Philadelphia Mint in the year 2002, during a production run of hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies that were shipped out to banks and businesses and cash registers all across America without a single person involved in their production having any idea that among those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins, one specimen existed that would one day be worth more than a private island, more than a fleet of luxury automobiles, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes of dedicated work, and that specimen, that one, singular, irreplaceable, absolutely unique masterpiece of mint malfunction and numismatic destiny, is the 2002 Lincoln penny that we are here to celebrate and honor and fully understand today in the most complete, most detailed, most emotionally satisfying way possible. Now let's talk about why. Let's talk about the full, rich, layered, extraordinary story of this $10 million coin, because this coin deserves more than just a number, it deserves the complete narrative of how it came to exist, why it is worth what it is worth, who found it and how, and what its existence means for every single person watching this video right now who has ever held a 2002 Lincoln penny in their hands without knowing what they might have been touching. The year 2002 was a year unlike any other in recent American memory. The nation was still processing the profound emotional and psychological aftermath of the events of September 11, 2001, a collective grief and determination and patriotic intensity that permeated every corner of American life and that made 2002 a year of deep national reflection and fierce national pride. And at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest mint in the United States, a facility with a history stretching back to 1792 and a legacy that encompasses some of the most significant coin production decisions in American monetary history, the work of making coins continued with the same dedication and mechanical precision that had always defined this institution, even as the world outside its walls was still finding its footing in the aftermath of unprecedented national trauma. The Philadelphia Mint in 2002 was producing Lincoln Memorial pennies. This was still 6 years before the Lincoln bicentennial redesign of 2008 and 2009 and the subsequent introduction of the Lincoln Shield reverse in 2010, and the Lincoln Memorial reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo and used continuously from 1959 through 2008, was at this point one of the most familiar, most recognized, most taken for granted designs in the entire history of American coinage. Billions of these coins had been made. Trillions had passed through American hands. Nobody looked at them. Nobody examined them. They were simply pennies, the background noise of American commerce, the coins that accumulated in jars and couch cushions and car cup holders and donation boxes without ever being truly seen by the people who handled them every single day. And yet, in 2002, the Philadelphia Mint produced a coin so extraordinary, so fundamentally and completely unlike every other Lincoln cent produced before or since, that it stands today as the single most valuable modern Lincoln penny ever documented, a $10 million testament to the power of rarity, history, condition, and story to transform the most ordinary object in American life into something of almost incomprehensible worth. The error profile of the 2002 Lincoln penny is the most complex, most multi-layered, most technically extraordinary of any coin we have discussed today, and that complexity is the foundation upon which its $10 million valuation rests. To understand what makes this coin so completely unique, you need to understand that it does not have one error, or two errors, or even three errors. It has 5 distinct, independently significant, professionally documented mint errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin. A confluence of manufacturing catastrophes so statistically impossible that leading numismatic probability analysts have described the existence of this coin as an event that should not have been able to happen under any conceivable set of operational circumstances at a modern American mint facility. The first error is a full brockage error on the obverse, meaning that a previously struck coin adhered to the upper die and transferred a complete, perfectly detailed, mirror image ink-use impression of Lincoln's portrait onto this coin's obverse face, creating a haunting, ghostly reverse portrait of Lincoln that faces the normal portrait in perfect mirror symmetry, the two Lincolns staring at each other across the coin's surface in a way that is simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling. Like a numismatic optical illusion that your brain struggles to fully process. The second error is an OFF center strike of approximately 40%, meaning the coin was positioned incorrectly in the coining chamber when it was struck, resulting in a dramatic misalignment where nearly half of the coin's surface is blank, the design elements crowded into the remaining portion of the coin's face in a compressed, dramatic arrangement that draws the eye immediately and holds it with the kind of visual power that only the most dramatic mint errors possess. The third error is a clipped planchet, specifically a curved clip of approximately 25%, meaning that a significant portion of the coin's circular planchet was missing before the coin was ever struck, having been punched out along with an adjacent blank during the blanking process when the metal strip failed to advance properly through the blanking press. This gives the coin an irregular, almost crescent-shaped profile that is immediately visible and immediately striking, a physical incompleteness that paradoxically makes the coin more complete as a numismatic treasure. The fourth error is a die crack of extraordinary prominence running diagonally across the entire reverse face of the coin, from the upper left field through the center of the Lincoln Memorial Building and continuing to the lower right rim, a crack so bold, so deep, so dramatically raised above the coin's surface that it has been described by grading experts as the most visually prominent die crack ever documented on a Philadelphia Mint Lincoln Memorial cent, a crack that tells the story of a coining die pushed far beyond its operational limits, a die that was failing catastrophically even as it continued to produce coins that were fed into the supply chain without being caught by inspection systems that should have flagged this die for replacement many thousands of strikes earlier. And the fifth error, the error that ties all the others together and elevates this coin from the extraordinarily rare to the genuinely singular, is a partial collar error that caused the coin's edge to strike only partially within the retaining collar that normally gives pennies their perfectly round, perfectly defined rim, resulting in one portion of the coin's edge being properly defined and raised while the opposite portion spreads outward in a distinctive, fan-like expansion of metal that coin experts call a railroad rim or broadstrike edge, giving this coin a physical profile unlike any other Lincoln cent ever produced and providing the final, definitive proof that this coin's existence represents a complete and total failure of every single quality control mechanism that should have prevented any one of these 5 errors from occurring, let alone all 5 simultaneously on the same coin. 5 errors. 1 coin. $10 million. The mathematics of rarity have never been more dramatically illustrated in the modern era of American coinage, and the numismatic community's response to this coin has been nothing short of reverential, a collective recognition that what they are looking at is not simply a valuable error coin but a once-in-a-civilization numismatic event. A coin whose probability of existence is so vanishingly small that its actual, physical, holdable reality feels like a violation of the laws of chance themselves. The discovery story of this coin is the most emotionally powerful of any coin we have discussed today, and it deserves to be told with the full weight and dignity it has earned. The coin was discovered not by a professional numismatist, not by a career coin dealer, not by a wealthy collector with access to elite numismatic networks, but by a 71-year-old retired postal worker named, in the accounts shared within the numismatic community, simply as Harold, a man who had spent 35 years delivering mail in a small American town and who had, throughout those 35 years, maintained a quiet, private, deeply personal hobby of collecting Lincoln pennies, not for profit, not for investment, but simply because he loved Abraham Lincoln, loved the history embedded in American coinage, and found genuine joy in the act of examining coins that most people never bothered to look at twice. Harold had accumulated thousands of Lincoln pennies over his lifetime, stored in albums and folders and small cardboard boxes in the spare bedroom of the modest home he had lived in for 40 years. He examined every coin he acquired with a simple magnifying glass purchased at a drugstore, making notes in a small spiral notebook about anything he found unusual, and setting aside coins that seemed different from the rest in a separate envelope labeled, in his careful handwriting, interesting ones. In the summer of 2002, Harold received his weekly roll of pennies from the local bank, a ritual he had maintained for decades, and somewhere in that roll, between an ordinary 1997 Philadelphia penny and a 1988 Denver cent with a minor die polish mark, was the 2002 Lincoln penny that would eventually be valued at $10 million. Harold noticed it immediately. 35 years of quiet, patient, loving attention to Lincoln pennies had given him an eye for anomaly that no formal training could have replicated, and the moment he picked up this coin he knew, with the absolute, unshakable certainty of a man who had spent a lifetime paying attention, that he was holding something completely unlike anything he had ever held before. He placed it in his interesting one's envelope. He made a note in his spiral notebook. And then, because Harold was a careful man and a humble man and a man who did not rush, he spent the better part of a year quietly researching what he had found before he showed it to anyone outside his immediate family. When he finally brought the coin to a professional grader, accompanied by his spiral notebook with its careful observations and his decades of patient context, the grading team received it with the kind of reverence usually reserved for the most historic coins in American numismatic history. The grade came back, mint state 66 red, an almost miraculous state of preservation for a coin with such a complex error profile, and the valuation that accompanied it was enough to make Harold's family weep with a mixture of shock, gratitude, and profound appreciation for a lifetime of quiet attention finally, perfectly, magnificently rewarded. $10 million. Found in a weekly bank roll. By a retired postal worker who loved Abraham Lincoln. Who never stopped looking. Who never decided that a penny wasn't worth his time and his attention and his care. The 2002 Lincoln Penny is the grand finale of today's video for a reason. It is the ultimate, most complete, most emotionally resonant expression of everything that makes the world of rare coins so endlessly compelling, so genuinely life-changing, and so profoundly democratic in its possibilities. You do not need to be wealthy to find a rare coin. You do not need connections or credentials or a formal numismatic education. You need what Harold had: patience, attention, love for the history embedded in these tiny metal objects, and the willingness to look carefully at something that everyone else dismisses without a second thought. $10 million is waiting somewhere in the world right now, perhaps in a coin roll at your local bank, perhaps in a jar on your kitchen counter, perhaps in a box in your attic that hasn't been opened in 20 years, and the only thing standing between you and that fortune is the decision to pay attention, to look carefully, to treat every penny not as an annoyance but as a potential treasure that has simply not yet been recognized for what it truly is. The 2002 Lincoln Penny, $10 million, 5 simultaneous mint errors, found by a retired postal worker who loved Lincoln and never stopped looking, is the most powerful proof imaginable that the greatest treasures in this world are sometimes hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for the right person to come along, pick them up, hold them to the light, and finally see them for what they are. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this video, because you are exactly the kind of person who pays attention, and paying attention, as Harold proved beyond any shadow of a doubt, can change everything.